Okay, folks, so as promised, we're going to go through some of the questions in problem set 4. So if you go into our course Canvas page and you find problem set 4 and you click on that, you can download the problem set 4 PDF as well as the worksheet. So I didn't write these problems, but so they're not necessarily in my style, but I wanted to go through them because it's a really good review for us. So this talks about the local global mobile company, and the idea is that this particular company has 5 plans, A through E. You would type in the name of a plan. You would also type in how many numbers, and you would get a calculation for what your monthly plan is. And so there's a base cost for the plan, then there are the amount of free minutes that you get, and then there's the minute cost as well. So you can pause this and take a look at it or take a look online. But what I'm going to do is just hop over here in the interest of having the video go rather briskly, and I'm going to type in the things that we need to enter. So the problem specifically says you want to enter in a cell plan, and this is going to be one of those numbers, A through E. Then down here what the user will also type in is number of minutes. That's how many minutes in a given month did they use up. And then we'll have down here the bill total. And you know what, I'll just start this flush with the left here, so I'll just delete those guys. Now, since this is are the only 2 cells that the user is going to be typing in, what I'm going to do is just set a background color in here just to kind of make that stand out. And I'm also going to go up here and I'm going to put a border around it. And again, that wasn't specifically asked, but it's something that I like to do to just sort of make sure that everything is working. And really, make clear what the end result is going to be in terms of what the user can enter into. So we won't spend a lot of time formatting things, but the bill total is the value that we're going to calculate. Now, what we're going to have here is we've got plan name, or plan letter you can put. Plan name I think is fine. And we'll say A, B, C, D, and E. And in fact, one of the things I'll do is I'll just justify these over here. And then in addition to the plan names that we've got, we'll also have the base cost. And then we have free minutes. And then we have minute cost. And the base cost for the plans, they start at $9.99, and then the next one is $19.99. The next one is $39.99. The next one is $79.99. And the next one after that is $159.99. Now, hopefully you guys have actually tried these on your own, and all of these numbers are inside of the PDF. So you should really be trying this stuff on your own rather than just kind of copying along, because this way, if you have any things that trip you up, you can make sure that you really understand those before the test comes along. I'm going to justify these guys here too. Now, in terms of the free minutes, we have 0 free minutes for Plan A. We have 100 free minutes for Plan B. We have 250 free minutes for Plan C. We've got 1,000 free minutes for Plan D. And we have unlimited minutes for Plan E. But Plan E, since it's unlimited, so then the extra minute cost is going to be 0. It's going to be 20 cents for Plan D. It's going to be 30 cents a minute for Plan C. It's going to be 40 cents a minute for Plan B, and it's a whopping 50 cents a minute for Plan A. So again, for Plan A, every single minute is going to be charged 50 cents. For Plan B, every minute over 100 minutes is going to be 40 cents. So if you talk for 101 minutes, then you're going to have $19.99 plus 1 minute's worth of calls, which is 40. So we need to now go ahead and do a calculation. And there are a few things that are asked in here. One is it says, hey, use the if error function to display plan not found in any cell that would have an NA. So what I think is really useful when you've got a complex problem like this, because there's a bunch of things that we want to do for bill total. I can close up our formula builder over here just for now. So why don't we start calculating our bill total by first getting our base cost. And how are we going to get our base cost? Well, what we want to do is we want the user to type in a cell plan letter here, so A through E, and depending on the letter that they type in, what we want to do is we want to go over to the second column in here. So they would type in the letter that's going to match up to the first one. We'll look it up, and then we're going to show the value in the second column. Now, what you really need to make sure that you know how to do for the exam is, oh yeah, I'm going to need a VLOOKUP function for this. So again, let's build it out, and we're not going to worry about the if error or anything like that. We'll just start building our formula. Let's make sure that we can get a base cost. So right in here, in terms of bill total, I'm going to click on my FX here, and I'm going to go to VLOOKUP, and you could just type in VLOOKUP there too. So what is my lookup value going going to be? It's going to be whatever letter I type into B2. What's the table array going to be? Well, the table array that we've got is going to be the whole table that I've got here. And the reason why I'm selecting the whole table that we've got here is, again, this is our first column here, but then this is going to be the second, third, and fourth, and you always do your lookup on the first column. So, okay, that's great. What about the column index? Well, if I look up and find a value here, so let's imagine, I type in the letter C here. So I found C, and so now which column do I want? This would be 2, 3, 4, so we want column 2. So for column index here, it's okay to just put in the letter 2 in here. Most of the time, we want you to actually refer to either cells or ranges of cells, but this is totally fine to put in the number 2 right here. And for the range lookup, this is the one that gets a little squirrely. So it's false if you have to have an exact match, or true if it's an approximate match. We're going to always use false. So we'll say false in here because we want to look up an exact match here for the kind of VLOOKUPs we've been doing in class. So I'll press enter here, and we get a not applicable in here. And the reason why we're getting a not applicable is because there's no value in here. Now, it's tricky in the way that this problem is worded, and again, this isn't necessarily the way that I would word it, but we can see over here it says, hey, use if error display plan not found for anything that returns the NA. So we can go back and deal with the plan not found stuff first, but let's do that in at the very end. First, let's go ahead and build out a function that works here. So I'll put in C for cell plan, and look what we're getting. We're getting 399 or 39.99. Why is that working? Because again, what we're doing here is we're taking a look at this value in B2. We're looking it up in the first column, then of the range from A7 through D11. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find the second column in A7 through D11. That's this one here, and we return it as an exact match, which is what false means for us. So again, if we went back in here instead and I type in E, notice it gives us 159, so all of that is great. So let's think about, I'm going to go to C just so we have something to work through in here. And let's imagine, okay, we want to try to figure out what happens in terms of the number of free minutes that we've got here, and we want to multiply these appropriately. So again, it's okay for us to build these things out in phases and make sure that we've got things that are working properly. So what I want to do for my number of minutes in here to find out what is the amount of minute cost I need to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look and say, all right, what have you typed in here? So let's see, for C it's 250. So I'm going to type in, just so that I have a number to work with, 251 in here. So what am I expecting my minute cost to be added to 39.99? Well, I would expect that to be the number of minutes minus, for C, it's 250, and then multiplied by minute cost. So let's go over here, and I'm going to say, all right, why don't we take this value here, and we want to subtract it from, and now remember how we did a VLOOKUP down below here, where we found, we looked up this value, and then we found the thing in column 2. Well, now what we want to do is we want to find the value in column 3, because we want to subtract what we do from the number of minutes that we have from whatever our free minutes value is right over here. So how do we find that? We find it via VLOOKUP. So again, we can just go ahead and do a VLOOKUP here, and remember what we do for our VLOOKUP, where we're going to look up, again, we're looking up for a plan, whatever plan we put in here. So this is going to be plan C, and then comma, and then what are we going to look up? We're going to look up through this range, and then what do we return? Not column 1, not column 2, but column 3, and this is going to be false, which means find an exact value here. So we're going to find these two values. Let's press enter and see what this shows us. So this shows us a 1 in here. It shouldn't be $1 though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the formatting. Click on home and then go over to clear and just say formats. So this is 1 minute we should be getting here. So if we want to do, now that we've got this value here, if we want to go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and calculate what are our minute costs going to be. Well, it should be this value that we've got here, which is that one value that we've got that we just typed in. And now what we want to do is we want to multiply it by the same VLOOKUP that we've got, but instead of looking in 1, 2, 3, we're going to look in column number 4. So we'll say VLOOKUP, and then, again, we're looking up whatever our cell plan is, comma, in this range right here. And again, it's totally fine if you wanted to name that range too. In fact, I think it recommended that you do that, but it didn't require that you did that in the problem set. And then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to figure out number 4, and we're going to do the exact match there, false. And the exact match, remember, it's matching that very first thing that you're looking up here. So let's press enter and see what we get here. So now this is where we need our dollar amount. So I'm going to go back again and do my currency in here. And we're getting 30 cents here, which is just right, because if we charged, or if we have 250 minutes of 251 of talk time, we've got just 1 minute we're being charged because we've got 250 minutes for free. So what if we had 252 in here? We got 60 seconds. What if we had 249? So this is where it gets a little tricky, because for 249, this is showing a negative 30. That's what the parentheses mean. That's not really what we want. If we have anything which is less than this value in here, we want this to number to be 0 here. We can just do 0 multiplied by this, or not put any value in here as well. So there are a bunch of different ways that we can do this. So we've got this really big formula in here. You can see again how things can get more complex as we build them all out. And by the way, there's no problem in saying, you know, hey, I'm going to copy this formula here. I'm just going to escape out of it. And if you want to just put it over here to make sure you've got a backup if you're going to start, you know, modifying this earlier formula that you've got, which is exactly what we're going to want to do. So, you know, we've got this formula here, and we want to say, hey, if it's negative, then what we want to do is put a 0 in here. Otherwise, we're going to take the value and we're going to multiply it by, you know, whatever the VLOOKUP is that we've got in the way that we've done it here. So remember what we do with our if statement. So we can say right here, if, and then what we're going to do inside of our if, whoops, I didn't type in if properly, if, and I'm going to give myself a few spaces just so that you can see what I'm doing for my if. So what I'm going to check for my if is, I'm going to check to see if my value in B here, so that's B minus the VLOOKUP value that I've got right here, which is going to be my number of free minutes. So I'm going to say, hey, if this thing here, B minus the lookup of whatever's in B2 across this, and then the third value here. So if that value minus B3 is less than 0, then I want to put a 0 in there, comma. Otherwise, what I want to do is I'm going to put in the value that we just properly calculated. So I'm going to put in my parenthesis in here, and let's take a look what I've got. So I've got nothing showing up here if I'm 249. If I'm 250, I also have nothing. If I've got 251, I've got 30 cents. If I've got 252, I've got 60 cents. Let's just make sure that this would work then. Now, if we go down and try it out with D, so if I do D and I have 1002, again, for plan D, it's calculating 79, which is right here, which is great. And then I've got 1002, which is, you know, 2 over at 20 cents each, so it comes up with 40. But what if I had 9.99 in here? That's a negative value in here, so that's fine. And now there's also another way. I mentioned, you know, there are several different ways that you can do this. So do watch on the exam too if I ask you to use a particular technique. So we used an if statement here, but another thing that we could do is we could do, you could use a max statement. So let's go back over here and start this from scratch. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to take a look here again with our VLOOKUP. We're going to do a VLOOKUP. Whoops, I should have tabbed over. So if I start typing in VLOOKUP, then tab in, so VLOOKUP, that's great. I want to look up this, comma, where do I want to look up? In this range here, comma, what do I want to return? 1, 2, 3, the third column over, comma, and I want to say false, so I return the exact value. So that's going to give us, or give me, you know, whatever value here is associated with D. So now what I want to do is I want to take the value that I've got and I want to subtract that, so just what we had done previously from the first part here. So I'm going to say this value, B3 minus whatever I looked up. And now what this is giving me here is, again, I'm going to get rid of the dollar sign and just clear that out for now. We eventually do want this to be a number, but I've got a -1 in here, meaning I'm 1 below my number of free minutes. Now again, that isn't going to work for me because, you know, I don't want to do a -1 times 20 because, you know, I don't want to subtract 20 cents from my bill. I'm just going to give them free values up until, you know, they have greater than 1,000 minutes if you're in plan D, or greater than 1,000, or greater than 250 minutes if you're in plan C. So I want this value to be 0 in here unless I am greater than, this particular number. So let's see, how can we go ahead and leverage this instead of doing if? Well, remember, we've got another function in here called max. And again, if I didn't specify, you could use either of these. So I could say, okay, give me the max of either this number, comma, or 0. So again, what 0 is if it's 0 is going to be the max if we unless we have a negative number in there. So if I press enter in here, so what have we got? We've got 0 as our max. What if we did, we had no numbers in there, if we just had 50 minutes in there? So we can see they're all showing up as 0. Again, what happens if we have 1002? Then it shows up as 2. So what we want to do now that we've got the max is we'll take this number here, and we want to multiply it by the VLOOKUP in the 1, 2, 3 in the 4th column. So, again, we're going to get a 0 value here if we haven't exceeded our free minutes, which is great. So that's going to give us a 0 extra minutes cost. But as soon as we're in positive territory here, we're going to multiply it by something which is not 0, and so we'll get a legitimate value in here. So, again, we'll just do multiplication here. You could type in the VLOOKUP again, or you could just copy and paste and change the column number. I'll just type in VLOOKUP again because maybe it's useful for you to hear, what are the different pieces of VLOOKUP. And again, remember, you can go ahead and look up VLOOKUP on the side here too. As long as you're in Excel, that's okay. But, I've done VLOOKUP so many times, I know I'm going to have a lookup value, which is whatever I type in here, comma, and then it's going to be your range, which again is this here, comma, then it's going to be what column you want. I want my minute cost, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th column over, comma, and we always say false at the end, which is exact lookup. Press enter here, and we're getting 40 cents here, which is we're 2 over 1,000 for D. So again, D, we have 1,000 free. We're 2 over, so that's why we get a 2, and we multiply that 2 times 20 cents, and that's why we get 0.4, and we'll just put a $sign in there, so we got 40 cents. So now what we can do for here, for our bill total, is we can just take this value, and we can add it to this value here, press enter, and that's looking great. Now, the one other thing that they had, or that the question had asked you to do is in case somebody typed in something that was completely different, like let's say you typed in F, and you get a not applicable in here. Well, it says use the if error, and by the way, we don't need this piece over here. It said use if error to provide a message which says no such plan. So how does if error work? Well, if error simply says, and I'll give myself a little bit of space here because we want to keep the formula that we've got, so I'll just space over here. It's, I'll start typing in if error right here, and you could tab over, and then it says, okay, the value, and then the value if it's an error. So the value is just going to show like the regular value for the formula, but if it comes back with one of these not applicable errors in here, then you put a message afterward. So what I'm going to do with my if error is I'm going to check right here my whole formula that I just typed in. So I'm not sure if you noticed what I did was I just backspaced over the extra parentheses that I had here in if error here. So again, I'm starting with this. Then this is going to be my first value. It'll evaluate this, and as long as I have no error, it's going to show me the real number that I get in here. But if I do have an error, then I can put in an error message, and then I'll close my parenthesis to stop the if error. And what is my message going to be? It's going to be no such plan. Press enter here. We see no such plan for F. If we typed in E, that would work. By the way, if you put in lowercase e, that would work as well. So again, let's try this stuff out. What if we have 1,000 on A? We're charged for everything. What if we do plan B and we do 95 minutes, so it's just going to be the $19.99. But what if we have 105 minutes? Oh, it's going to be 5 times our 40 value here, which is $2, which is going to add to $19.99. That's why we get $21.99. So this is the answer for this. Hopefully you've got that. You can see a bunch of different ways to do this. Make sure you know how to use if error. If you wanted to use if instead of match, that would have been fine unless I specifically asked that on the test. Hopefully this was a good review for it. Feel free to go back and try this on your own. That's a really good way to study, is to say, okay, I didn't know how to do it the first time. If you did, awesome. If you didn't, you can try ahead and do this again on your own, and keep doing it until you got it down. So keep at it.